Bob Sevakinis. Welcome to our show in a nutshell. Today we have our guest Stephanie Longo. Stephanie is known as an expert on Italian-American history of northeastern Pennsylvania and has authored several books on the subject, including The Italians of Northeastern Pennsylvania from 2004, The Italians of Lackawanna County from 2018, and The Italians of Dunmore from 2012, and they were published by Arcadia Publishing. Her most recent book, The Italians of Lackawanna County, was recognized with the Gold Award in the History category in the 2019 Nonfiction Book Awards and with the Gold Award from the Literary Titan Book Awards. She's a graduate of the University of Scranton with the BA in Italian and French, a Master's in History, and also from Regent University with the Master's in Journalism. She's made it her mission to continue to preserve the history that her ancestors brought to the United States from Italy. She possesses a Women in Leadership certificate and a Women in Entrepreneurship certificate from Cornell University and a graduate of the Leadership Lackawanna Core Program. Ms. Longo has also been the Associate Producer and Chief Administrative Officer of various newspapers and also a podcast, including the Italian American Podcast. She's a dual citizen of the United States and Italy, and she's spoken both regionally and nationally on the subject of Italian immigration in the United States. So I want to welcome our guest, Stephanie Longo. And Stephanie, thank you so much for coming out to tell us a little bit about, is it going to be about Italian Americans?
I think
it's going to be.
Yeah.
When I look at northeastern PA and I see our rich history and how important our ethnic backgrounds, our ethnic heritage, our ethnic values and principles were, the Italian American population obviously was very important in the development of northeastern PA. Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So when you think of northeastern Pennsylvania, you do think of this wonderful ethnic enclave that people don't realize is an ethnic enclave. You know, you have the beginnings of the area with the Welsh, and then it just goes through the American immigration experience from Europe. You see the Irish coming, you see the Germans, the Eastern Europeans, and you see the Italian Americans coming in. And that's obviously my background. My family comes from Italy, so we're very proud of that. And just with an interest in history that I've had my whole entire life, it just seemed like a natural fit to get into ethnic history and especially Italian American history for this area. I'm very proud to be from northeastern Pennsylvania. I'm proud to be from Scranton. My family lives in Dunmore. That's where I live right now, and it's just a fantastic place to be a resident of. So whenever we can celebrate our area's ethnic history, I'm all for that.
Just when you mention all the ethnic backgrounds, yes, and the families that built northeastern PA to what it is. I go back to a time in doing my research on Rocky Glen Park, and you had ethnic days at Rocky Glen Park, and I remember seeing many photos of different groups bringing out and celebrating their heritage in our area. In just reading through your bio, I know you've written several books on Italian Americans in our area. Tell us a little bit about what is the research involved in writing a book for people who may want to be an author someday, specifically to the Italian Americans of our area?
Well, you know what? To me, it's this whole process of historical reconstruction because a lot of times people didn't keep good records. It wasn't like they arrived and let's take pictures of them getting off the boat, or let's take pictures of them setting foot in Scranton for the first time. This just didn't happen. You have to really go through the archives that are out there and hope that there's something that you're able to piece together. I was very fortunate. Mary Ann at the Lackawanna Historical Society has been such an amazing friend and help with all the research, and also the Anthracite Heritage Museum. I did an internship up there under Chester, and he really helped guide me into finding some of this research, because there could be a photo in an archive and people might not know what it is, and then you have to go and try to figure out, well, where did this photo come from? It's a lot different now because we have a lot available to us online to do some of the research, such as Newspaperscom, which is dangerous for me. I could easily spend several hours in a clip just floating around on there looking up all sorts of things. But back then when I started, Italians in northeastern Pennsylvania was from 2004, so that did not exist at the time. The internet was just becoming a big thing. So you had to go into archives, you had to use microfilm, you had to go to libraries. I mean, you still should go to libraries because they're an amazing place with just trying to find information. But you end up on this process of historical rediscovery, and you find out who the key players were in the Italian community. You find out some of the key events, the key situations that people found themselves in. And little by little, you're able to piece it together and find its place in northeastern Pennsylvanian history, of course, with the coal mines, and then also in overall American history.
You mentioned the historical societies in the area and everything,
Yes.
and you mentioned newspapers.com. So for our viewers that may want to continue to do some of this research and information, how would you guide them towards learning about their family history, whether it's Italian, American, Polish, or whatever the nationality, ethnic background may be? And newspapers.com, what does that mean to the public who may not be aware of it?
Newspapers.com to me is like being a kid in a candy store. You sign up for newspapers.com account. In fact, if you sign up for ancestry.com, they have a package deal where you get all the ancestry records from ancestry.com, you get newspapers.com, and I think the other website is called Fold 3, which is military records. And you can easily access all of this. You could type in a name and type in the location that the person lived in and perhaps the dates, and you'll be able to get a whole bunch of information that you never knew even existed. And it's pretty awesome. It's very good, especially for our area. The Scranton Times was kind enough to give their digital archives over to newspapers.com. I don't know how the process works or how that is, but you can access the Scranton Times back up until it's, from its founding up to the present day, as well as the Scranton Republican. The Scranton Republican is also on there. So if you're from this area, you can find a lot of good information on newspapers.com. Same with Ancestry. Sign up for an Ancestry account, start building your tree, make your tree public. I've run into some snags in my own personal genealogical research because people have private trees. And it's like, oh man, I can't figure out who these people are because it's private and it just comes up private. So make it public because you don't know who else you might be able to help with some of your research.
So historical societies also are valuable
Yes.
for you being able to go in and research your family's history.
Absolutely. Yes. From what Marianne and Sarah told me, the Lackawanna Historical Society also has a family file. So there's actual files on some of the families that came, so you might be able to find out some family history that way. When people pass on and the families don't want the old photos, my suggestion is make sure that the Historical Society gets them because they'll take care of them, and you never know who you might be helping out with that. And plus, too, if you don't want to sign up for an Ancestry account, the Lackawanna County Library System does have that, where their members can use the Ancestry account from there. I don't know how that works with newspapers.com, but I do know that you can use Ancestry from there.
So for our viewers who are interested, they could learn a lot of information by visiting the historical societies in our area, by just going online to the newspapers and everything and learning a lot more about genealogical research, because I know that is something that a lot of people are interested in their family histories.
Totally.
So tell me why you are so proud of your Italian-American roots.
Oh man, that is probably my favorite question to answer when I'm asked.
So you'll give us a great answer.
I'll give you a great answer. So all of this happened, and my mother will laugh when she sees this episode because I tell this story all the time. When I was 5 years old, my mom had taken me to Dino and Francesco's in Clark Summit. We were out for the day and we just went to go get some food. And they have these placemats, and a lot of Italian restaurants still do, with the map of Italy. So to keep me occupied, because again, this is 5-year-old me, and a 5-year-old is squirmy and fidgety and wants to just play and not sit in the booth waiting for their food, she took my hand and was tracing the map of Italy. And she said to me, "My daddy's from here. My daddy's from here." And that always stuck with me. My grandfather died before I was born. He died in 1973. I came along in 81. So enough of time passed that, I clearly did not get to meet my grandfather. And unfortunately, because of when I was born, I didn't get to meet a lot of family from my mother's side. A lot of them had passed on well before I was born, and that was unfortunate. My grandmother died in 1958, so there really wasn't a lot. I relied on my mother's stories, and thank God she told them to me. I also remember my Aunt Jenny's stories. My Aunt Jenny was my grandfather's sister, so my great aunt, and she would tell stories of when they came over. And all of this just helped instill such an amazing sense of pride in being Italian that you can't separate that from yourself. When you have it instilled in you from such a young age, it just becomes a part of you. I can't see me as me without my Italian heritage. You can't. You cannot separate that from Stephanie Longo, the person. She's Italian, and I'm very proud to be Italian. My grandfather was born in Guardia Lombardi, and he would always say, "I want to go back to Guardia," and we did get to go there, my mother and me, and we got to see the house that he was born in. And my grandmother's family was from a town called Nicastro in Catanzaro, and we're very proud of that. So we're Campanian and Calabrese in our family, so Southern Italian, and proud.
So you mentioned one trip or two to Italy. How many times have you been to Italy?
I've been there a total of 6 times.
And what are some of your favorite things for those who may be considering visiting Italy down the road, or what should they look out for? What are some of your favorite things in Italy?
The food. I mean, we have to be honest here. Italy is known for its food, the artwork, everything. But my main thing that I want to tell people is don't go to places like Rome, don't go to places like Florence and say, I've been to Italy. You're seeing a touristy big city. You have to go to the smaller towns if you really want the Italian experience. And if you're of Italian origin, I strongly suggest finding that ancestral town that you went to and going there, because you'll find relatives that you didn't know that you had. And believe me, the towns will be so excited that an Americano is there that they will roll out the red carpet for you. And you'll get to actually get this sense of Italy that you didn't see before. The big cities, of course, just for their historical and cultural significance, by all means go. But take a day and go to some of the smaller towns and really experience that life, because this is very similar to what your ancestors lived. Guardia is absolutely stunning, but it's still kind of trapped in the past, where you get enough of a sense of, okay, this is kind of what my grandfather saw. Give or take a few improvements that have happened since 1916 when he was born, obviously, but there's enough there that you're able to really grasp the experience and grasp where your ancestors came from.
So obviously we know you're very proud of your Italian heritage.
You think?
Here in northeastern Pennsylvania, what would you tell us that the Italians have accomplished? Some of the major events, major activities, major individuals in northeastern PA.
When people ask me who I think is the top Italian American in northeastern Pennsylvania, I always say the late Gino Merli, the recipient of the Medal of Honor in World War II. He, to me, represents the Italian American story, because here is somebody that is the child of immigrants, and he was just doing his duty. He went to World War II, he fought for his country, he did it proudly, and here he was able to do this amazing accomplishment by saving the lives of the people that he was with. And he didn't see himself as a hero. He just saw himself as doing his duty. And that, to me, represents the Italian American experience. Nobody in the Italian American community sets out to be the great hero of the Italian American community. It just happens. We're just here because we're proud to be who we are, and we're proud of being American. And I think Gino Merli really encapsulates that whole experience of being a proud Italian American, and he was proud of that. I remember his sister Emma. I had the fortune of meeting her, and she spoke the broken English. She came over from Italy herself, and you could see that dual sense of pride of, yes, we're Italian, but we're also American. And I think just that family truly represents what it is to be an Italian American in northeastern Pennsylvania. I also think when you're talking about this area, you can't separate the history from the festivals. We have some of the coolest Italian American festivals in the United States. I mean, La Corsa dei Ceri in Jessup, to me, is the standard bearer. In fact, through my job at the Italian American podcast, we discovered that it's really the example of Northern Italian feasts in the United States. For those of us from Southern Italy, we consider everything north of Rome to be Northern. They're technically Central Italy where they're located, but to us they're Northern, so that's why I say that. But they're really the standard bearer for that, and they're the biggest one in the United States, and that's right here in our backyard. There's several other feasts and festivals here in this area that are carbon copies of what you see in Italy, and it's a beautiful thing because it's been so well preserved.
So we look at, again, famous Italian Americans in northeastern PA and throughout the country, and we look at Christopher Columbus. We look at downtown Scranton and we see the wonderful statues and monuments that are up honoring our ethnic heritage and what a major role it played in the development and the formation of northeastern Pennsylvania. The Columbus statue, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on how important it is to our city to honor the Italian Americans through the Columbus statue, in addition to the other nationalities, ethnic groups that are honored on Courthouse Square.
Sure. I understand that for many people watching this, Columbus is a loaded question. People have passionate thoughts about him on either side, pro or against. Even in the Italian American community, are people who are gung-ho, Columbus is our national Italian-American hero, and there are other people who are like, get rid of all the statues. So it's a very complex debate. And through my work with the Italian-American podcast, as well as the National Columbus Education Foundation, we're trying to bring as many voices to that discussion as possible to teach people the history of Columbus. But when you're talking about Columbus, the statue on Courthouse Square, that to me is so representative not just of northeastern Pennsylvania's Italian-American history, but also Italian-American history in general. So I'll give you a very brief history of the statue.
Please do.
The statue itself was built in 1892. And of course, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But what people don't realize is the year before, in 1891, 11 Italian Americans, they were from Sicily, were lynched in New Orleans. What happened was they were falsely accused of a crime, and the Court of Common Opinion decided to lynch these people. There was a mob, an angry mob, that went into the jail in New Orleans and lynched the Italians. They did not get due process of the law. They weren't given the chance to defend themselves. They were just lynched. Why? Because they were Italian. And President Theodore Roosevelt actually said that the lynching was rather a good thing, was his quote. So you could see the anti-Italian sentiment that was going on at that time. As a result of this lynching, Italians throughout the United States wanted to do something to be like, hey, we're here, we're really proud to be Italian American, take notice of us. We've done some great things. And they thought, well, who's the person that we can have that represents both Italian pride as well as pride in this new world? And a lot of Italian American communities in the US settled on Christopher Columbus, because without his discovery of the New World by the Europeans, we would not be here today. So the Christopher Columbus statue in Scranton was built for this time. It was formally dedicated on October 21st, 1892 on Courthouse Square.
A long history.
Yeah. And that event itself was considered the greatest celebration that the city of Scranton ever saw. So even larger than St. Patrick's Day. In fact, Mayor Fellows considered having the Scranton Fire Department open up fire hoses on the Scranton Republican reported as the surging mass of people, because there were so many people down there that you couldn't cut through the crowd. And Frank Carlucci is actually the sculptor of that statue. And he is very important to national Italian American heritage because he's the guy that sculpted the grand staircase at Ellis Island. So he was a Scrantonian.
We have a lot of famous
We do.
Scrantonians that have made it successful.
Exactly. And, he was sculpting that statue in his front yard on Madison Avenue, which I think is like one of the coolest stories, because I could just imagine, here's an arm today, here's a head today, just kind of how that was going. But he came and he formally dedicated that to the city. And in the remarks that were presented that day by himself, as well as some other prominent Italians at the time, they were saying, this is a gift from us, the Italian American community, to the city of Scranton and to the area, because we want to show you just how proud we are of being from your town, as well as being Italian American. And that to me is key. When I was giving a presentation at the Forest City Historical Society a few years ago, they told me that Frank Carlucci's stone quarry, where he got all of his stones, was actually outside of Forest City. And you stop and you think to yourself, my goodness, when the immigrants arrived in America, their first steps were on something from northeastern Pennsylvania, because of that grand staircase. And now that statue, too, is built with stone from that quarry. So there's a strong link there to Ellis Island with the staircase, as well as our statue. It's the American immigrant experience, and it's the Italian American experience. So we're very proud of it, but I do understand where people are coming from. I strongly suggest that if people are interested, they check out the series that we're doing right now on the Italian American podcast. It's about Columbus. It's several episodes, and we're talking to everybody. So some world-renowned Columbus experts, Italian Americans who are against Columbus, as many people as we can find that we're trying to get the true story of. And I also suggest that people read this phenomenal book. The guy's name is Rafael Ortiz, and he is of the Taino descent. The Tainos were actually the tribe that Columbus allegedly enslaved. And I don't want to get into that full discussion of whether or not Columbus had slaves or not, because that itself is a very complicated matter. But what Raphael did was he heard people say to him, well, why do you, how could you support Columbus when here's what he did to our people? And he said, if you can find me evidence, then fine. I am against Columbus. nobody could find him the proper evidence to make him be like, okay, Columbus was a bad man. And he actually wrote a book called Christopher Columbus the Hero, and he has 2 other books that really debunk every single theory that is out there on Christopher Columbus. So if someone's looking for some really good reading about this, definitely check that out, or just listen to the Italian American podcast, because we have had a Raphael on several times.
And besides that, I would also encourage our viewers to take a walk, take a ride, go tour Courthouse Square and see the Columbus statue, see all the other statues there of Kosciuszko honoring the Polish and Lewis for the, just see all the statues on the Courthouse Square that are honoring our history, our heritage, and everything else that we have to offer there. And I think it's a wonderful tour to walk around there and see
Absolutely.
everything. I know you've written several books. Tell us a little bit about what is in your books, so that people will know, like, what can they find and where can they find your books?
They can contact me at stephanielongo.net, and the books are for sale right there, so that makes it very easy. And I'll sign them or do whatever you want for them. I like doing that for people.
You're a celebrity. You're going to autograph books for us. Okay.
I don't know if I'm a celebrity or not. I just love what I do. What I think the main thing that I want to have people understand about my books is that it's trying to tell the history of an ethnicity in this area, and it's by no means complete. This is either who was willing to talk to me, what I was able to find pictures of. You can never say this is the complete history, because there's always something else out there that maybe you did not see in your research. And I'm excited by that kind of stuff. So if anybody ever wants to send me things, like, go right ahead, because I'm like I said, with newspapers, I'm a kid in a candy store. My books, to me, are just a snapshot of what that life was like. Italians of Lackawanna County is more the modern day history. And I love that, because I think that people tend to think, okay, the immigrants arrived, they got here, and then eventually they assimilated. And yes, assimilation does happen, but there's also that maintenance of your ethnic traditions too. And I see that at work. There's Italian enclaves throughout the United States that have beautiful traditions, and northeastern Pennsylvania fits beautifully into that discussion because of all the ways that we've maintained our traditions. So my books are really just a snapshot of this ethnic life.
So for our viewers, again, if you want to learn a little bit more about Italian Americans in northeastern Pennsylvania, enjoy some of the wonderful research you've done, the photos and everything, go to your site, stephanielongo.net.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about the podcast that you're involved with.
Yeah, it is the most fun I've had at work. I don't even know how to describe how much I love my job. So I am the Associate Producer and Chief Administrative Officer of the Italian American Podcast. It is the nation's largest podcast for Italian Americans, by and for Italian Americans. And we discuss all sorts of really cool things. We're recording an episode tomorrow about the Pomarola season, so the jarring of tomato season that's upon us right now. So we talk about all sorts of different things. We are talking about all these different episodes about Christopher Columbus. So we try to give you a history lesson, but we keep it fun, light, entertaining, and it's just really exciting. I get to meet a lot of people from across the United States that share the same passions. I'm the administrator of the group's New Neighborhood group. So it's like a membership for the people who listen to the podcast that want to get a little bit more in depth. And I hear so many exciting stories. And listening to the New Neighborhood members talk about their passion then fuels my passion, and it's just a great thing. We have a really great team. We're constantly trying to do things. We have Italian American TV on YouTube, where there's some wonderful episodes of Greetings from Italian America, as well as the Italian Garden Project. So you could check those out and just really get a stronger sense of what it means to be Italian American, especially in this ever growing digital age. This is the way that we reach the younger generations, but we also engage the older generations. It's a really nice place. I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Well, hopefully people have a chance to tune in and listen to all the very interesting stories that you have to say.
It's on every podcast platform that there is. So.
Okay. You mentioned younger adults and everything, and I always try and figure out how we're going to see younger adults, whether it's get engaged in our community in some capacity. In looking through your background, what would you suggest to young adults that are interested in journalism, that are interested in researching their family history, in being proud of their family history, being part of our community? What would you suggest to those young adults and their families?
So, there's two different ways that I can respond to this question. So I'll give you one thing and then segue into the next. In 2019, I was part of the Leadership Lackawanna Core Program. For people who are not familiar with it, Leadership Lackawanna is a nonprofit organization here in the area that is geared toward professional development that has a community service aspect. It's absolutely fantastic. And each session of the core program, there's actually several programs under Leadership Lackawanna that you can do. There's one for high schoolers that I actually did when I was in high school, Tomorrow's Leaders Today. The core program for the young-ish, because I'm close to 40 now, but the emerging professionals of the area. And there's also an executive program as well as some college level programming. So there's really a lot that's going on with that. But the core program of Leadership Lackawanna gives you this over the 9 months that you're a part of this. Each month has a different theme. So there's a local history month, there's a media month, there's a health month, just different themes that then you could see these presentations that are given to you, all while you're doing a community service project for the benefit of the area. In fact, my group did a historic display at the Ritz Theater here in downtown Scranton, which was awesome because that's hidden Italian-American history that I totally ate up. But you really get to discover a lot about yourself, about your interests, and you really grow as a professional. So if you're able to do that, if your workplace is able to send you for that, there are scholarships and financial aid available. It changed my life. Leadership Lackawanna was one of the best things that I could have done for myself in that sense, because it really cemented to me just how much I love doing Italian-American things. Also, talk to senior citizens. Unfortunately, the older generations are dying off. And we've seen that especially with COVID-19, unfortunately. It hit the older generation the worst. And it makes me sad to think of all the stories that were lost along with these people. Because if we don't tell the stories, we don't have those stories preserved. And it's important to be able to preserve these stories for future generations. And you don't know, somebody could have died that was actually at the great event for the unveiling of the Columbus statue. I mean, obviously they would have died maybe back in the 1980s just by timing, but somebody that was there could have told a really cool story. If somebody had written that down or recorded it, that could have been preserved. So talk to senior citizens. A lot of times when you go to a senior center or you go to a retirement home, a lot of times these people don't have anybody to talk to. And if you go there and you talk to them, you're learning something and you're also making their day. So it's a win-win for everybody. And I think that just seeing them be so passionate about what they're telling you about, it's going to feed your passion and it's going to light that spark inside of you to do something with those stories. So do that. And then of course, go to your libraries, go to your historical societies, go to your museums, go to these places because this is living history. This is tangible history that you can touch. I could reach out right now and touch that piece of coal that is on this table, and I'm holding hundreds of years of northeastern Pennsylvania's history in the palm of my hand, literally. And there's so many stories behind that piece of coal that some of them were lost, but a lot of them you can find again by doing some historic reconstruction. Go on newspapers.com and just type in coal mining and see what you come up with.
It's a great suggestion, going eventually when our world gets a little more organized.
Absolutely.
Spending some time with senior citizens again and the older generations because they do have so many great stories to tell and those stories need to be documented. Just on that level alone, what would your grandparents say about what Stephanie has accomplished in promoting and preserving the Italian family legacy of northeastern Pennsylvania? What would they say?
Oh, wow. The really cool thing is that Aunt Jenny and my mother both have told me things about that. Aunt Jenny unfortunately passed away in 2008, but she said to me, your grandfather would love you because you're the one that's so into the Italian things. My great-grandmother, of course, she came from Italy and she lived in Bunker Hill because that was the Guardia section, so that's where everybody lived. My mother even has said to me, Nicoletta would be so fascinated by you because you'd be able to talk to her. I'm learning Neapolitan dialect on top of my Italian right now, so we would definitely be able to have some really cool conversations and save these stories. And my mother has said to me so many times just how proud her parents would be. You know, being Italian wasn't something that they set out to preserve. It wasn't sitting my mother and my uncle down and saying, all right, Anne-Marie and Joseph, you're Italian and here's what you do. it was learning by example. It was watching my grandfather, jarring the peppers when it came time for that. Grandpa loved peppers, so that was one thing. He always had peppers on things from what I was told. Or my mother would tell me stories of my grandmother cooking, or my great-grandmother. And I would hope that they would be happy. I would hope that they would understand just how important their legacy is to me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, so I hope that no matter what I do, it gives them honor, and I hope it gives my mother honor. She's my best friend, so you always want to make sure that your mom is happy, and I don't think she realized that when I was 5 years old, this would happen.
So we bring it full circle to your restaurant dining out when you were 5 years old to learning about Italian history of northeastern Pennsylvania. But thank you to our guest, Stephanie Longo. Please check out her books, the podcast, and all the great things that she's doing to preserve the history of Italian Americans in our area, in addition to telling those great stories. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Savakinas, and this is our show in a nutshell. Please tune in again.